Do the Niners have the best offensive line in the NFC West?
So I think this is actually the toughest conversation to have because I think that there's a path for all these teams to have individually good offensive lines, right? Like the Cardinals just got Rodney Hudson. Like whatever you want to say about the Niners getting
Alex Mack.
Mack.
Go through them real quick. The Cardinals are DJ Humphries from left to right. DJ Humphries, Justin Pugh, Rodney Hudson, Brian Winters, Kelvin Beachum. Humphries, Pugh, and Hudson are all good.
Very
good players. Seattle has Dwayne Brown, Damian Lewis, Ethan Posich, Gabe Jackson, Brandon Shell. Brown and Jackson are good players. Jackson's a very nice addition for them. The rest, I don't know. The Rams got Andrew Whitworth, David Edwards, Brian Allen, Austin Corbett, Rob Havenstein, and the 49ers have Trent Williams, Laken Tomlinson, Alex Mack, Aaron Banks, Mike McGlinchey. All right, how do we rank them?
So this is a tough one to rank.
Yeah.
It's really hard because I wish I had this is the one topic, you gave me where I'm like, man, I wish you gave me, an hour to think on this because this is.
So everyone just know that we're shooting from the hip here. We're shooting from the hip here.
If I had to go off the top of my head, I would go with Seattle at 4. I think that Seattle has the most question marks across their offensive line. I think Damian Lewis is a solid player. Gabe Jackson's also solid. And Dwayne Brown at this point, I think, actually, the NFC West has pretty good left tackles across the board.
They do.
DJ Humphries is underrated. Trent Williams, superstar. Whitworth is still really good. Brown is still really good. But overall, I would go Seattle 4.
Agreed.
I actually would go with the Rams at
Me
3.
too. Me too.
And I think that what really flipped this over the top for me is because the Cardinals got Rodney Hudson.
Yeah.
And I think Rodney Hudson is a top center in the NFL. I think he's the best, if not the best. I think he's right there in the conversation with the Corey Linsleys and the David Andrews and those type guys. So he's an elite center. So for that, I would go with the Rams at 3. I think Havenstein's a good player. Corbett, he was a really nice trade addition for them because he wasn't very good on the Browns and they were able to turn him around into a solid player. Whitworth's ageless. He just keeps going and he just keeps playing really well. He's a guy, when you talk about Mike McGlinchey's weight all the time, I can't help but notice how skinny Andrew Whitworth looked last year, but he wasn't getting bull rushed at all. Strength wasn't a problem.
And he's like 38, so wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only guy I've seen truly bull rush him was Nick Bosa in 2019.
True.
But,
True. So, and Nick Bosa is the strongest defensive end in the NFL.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
I would go with the Rams at 3. I actually think I would go with Arizona at 2.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't know who their right guard and right tackle are. So
and Josh Jones, who they drafted out of Houston, a lot of people thought he would be a bottom of the first round pick. They got him in the 3rd round. Maybe he becomes their right tackle this year.
Kelvin Beacham's he's kind of a has-been if he ever was one.
Right. My big problem with the Arizona offensive line and the reason I would give the Niners the edge is because I think Arizona's offensive line is pretty good at pass blocking and okay at run blocking. I wouldn't say there's anything I can call them elite at. The Niners offensive line, I look at top to bottom, those 5 guys, and I say they're an elite run blocking offensive line.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's questions about every single one of those guys outside of Trent Williams and what I've seen of Aaron Banks in pass protection. I mean,
True.
Alex Mack, I think, still has it, but I think he's also lost what he's had. So I think where you'll see that age show is a little bit in pass protection. Mike McGlinchey is always going to be a little bit of a question mark in pass protection, but that's what you do when you draft a tackle at 9. He's a phenomenal run blocker. The Niners value that, and so they're going to have to cover up for him a little bit in pass blocking. And then Laken Tomlinson, the truly very good interior pass rushers, can really give him problems, but he's a great fit for this run scheme, and he starts every game. So I think overall the reason I would give the Niners the edge to Arizona solely because I look at them as an elite run blocking line. And I can't look at Arizona's and say they're an elite pass blocking line. And I can't look at them and say they're an elite run blocking line.
Good call. Again, nothing to add. I just wanted to hear what you had to say because you're better at these kind of things than me. But what I will say is I don't really think these offensive lines in the NFC West are that good. I mean, the Niners have the best offensive line in the NFC West. Well, that says something about the offensive lines in the NFC West because even though they are excellent in run blocking, they got their deficiencies too. It's not like they're the Cowboys offensive line from the 90s or even the Harbaugh offensive line from the early 2010s.
Right. And we're ranking the Niners first. I would say if you had to rank offensive lines in the NFL, the Rams, the Cardinals, and the 49ers all land within 4 or 5 spots of each other. So the Niners aren't like a way better offensive line, you know? I think this is a really close conversation where I just prefer the Niners because of one or two things. Like with the Cardinals, the other thing is, I mean, the air raid offense has a suspect entire protection scheme. I mean, we saw Chip Kelly's college offense type protection scheme get exposed. We saw Robert Saleh exposed by mugging fronts the entire Cardinals protection scheme in week 16 of last year. They have a suspect protection scheme, which doesn't aid their offensive linemen. So that's another reason, because I think that goes into this. And where I think the Niners will improve is they have a good protection scheme if the center executes the line calls, and Alex Mack is going to execute the line calls much better than Cronus Grasu and Ben Garland. So I think that's another small edge I would give the Niners.
How many sacks and quarterback hits could have been avoided last year just by the center doing the right line call? It's a good point. It's a good point. All right.
We don't know, right?
We don't know, but a significant
not playing after the Seattle game when they abused that double A gap blips with Bobby Wagner, just it's got to tell you something, right?